everyone for joining. I know it's hard to stay in through a long day of conference sessions, as fast-paced as they are. But with the short time we have together today, what I wanted to talk with you about was what, as an industry manager with Blackboard, what I'm learning working with clients offering MOOCs on our free platform called Coursites. Over the last year and a half, we've been enabling clients to be able to offer open courses at no cost. It's a free open platform available to the world to be able to offer educational opportunities in all different realms, all different levels, all different topics. So I brought a couple of folks with me here today. One, Michelle Gribbins from University of Illinois Springfield, who will talk a little bit about their MOOC on Emancipating, which is a little bit about where we got our inspiration for our title. And then joining us virtually is Sasha Thackerberry from Cuyahoga Community College. We call it Tri-C, who ran a MOOC under a Gates MOOC grant on pre-algebra. So thanks, Sasha, for joining us. And unfortunately, Beth Pulaski, I know her, Beth Burns, she just recently got married, had a family emergency, so couldn't join us. But I'll talk a little bit, if there's time, about her MOOC on OER 101. So I just wanted to kind of provide some context. I think this morning's session that we had within the keynote provided a really good overview of the perspectives that exist regarding massive open online courses. And I recently found this this poster really on Flickr, but I've also seen it on Wikipedia, so don't tell my students that I'm actually using a Wikipedia source, because I do teach information systems as well at Excelsior College. But this is really something where I think defines where we are now with MOOCs, and I agree with what George said this morning about it being an experiment. And that's really the approach that we're taking at Blackboard with this as well. We've been around for quite a while and just really want to learn from what we can as what clients are looking for in this space, but also see how we can continue to support the open education community. So, I just saw all these open questions where every single letter here in the word MOOC is very still negotiable, moving from the connectivist to the ex-MOOC, and then looking at each letter, what does that really mean to each of the institutions that are looking to offer a MOOC? And can all institutions offer a MOOC? Should all institutions offer a MOOC? So I think we're in this wonderful experimental period. I know as a student of education myself, the one constant that I always knew was that there was going to be change. So that was something that I think we learned from the MOOC today. And so this is just a quick overview of the Coursites catalog that we've been able to offer, again, to the world, open and educational opportunities. We at Blackboard are offering different educational technology topics, as well as our clients, and you'll hear from two of those today, are offering a variety of different courses on that catalog. So we'll definitely leave you with the catalog URL so you can take a look at the opportunities that you might take advantage of. As we've been working with the individuals and institutions looking to offer the open educational resources, we found that they're really fall into three major areas. We're going to focus really more on the open access and experimentation today with the thrust of the conference. But really, these are the three areas that we're seeing, the reasons why that institutions are getting involved in the massive open online course realm, why they're offering open courses. So the open access, as institutions of higher education, a lot of us have missions to serve our communities. Sometimes we do charge tuition, but we do often offer outreach programs. So a lot of the schools that we're working with are utilizing the platform to offer these completely open courses. We have an institution offering it on social entrepreneurship, and you'll hear from a couple, from Michelle and Sasha today as well. And they also fall within the experimentation bucket. And this is where we're looking to offer courses at scale. What does that mean? Can we truly support a class of 1,000, of 10,000? Should it replicate what we have on campus? Can we connect open learning experiences and the matriculated learning experiences? Can we go ahead and experiment with different instructional design approaches based on this? So you're going to hear again some results from them today. And if we had a longer session, I'd be able to share with you some of what we found in our own MOOCs. But without further ado, I want to go ahead and let Sasha tell you a little bit about their MOOC on pre-algebra. So go ahead and take it away, Sasha.
Thanks, Jarl. I hope the audio is okay over there, so please stop me if there are any interruptions. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about our MOOC at Tri-C, and that is Cuyahoga Community College. I'm sorry, Jarl, I think I just spoke over you, so did I need something?
No, you're okay. I was just telling you the audio was good.
Okay. Oh, okay, thanks. So one of the things that we had done kind of on a spur of the moment is we found out about this opportunity through the Gates Foundation to create a MOOC. And the entire grant creation process, the entire proposal process was about a week and a half in length. And what we really focused on was kind of a little bit of a different structure historically. And I love saying historically in reference to MOOCs because it's, you know, a grand history of about, you know, maybe 4 years on the outside. But the interesting thing about ours is that it's a different population. So when MOOCs got started, obviously it was a different focus audience than we're looking at with developmental education. But the potential of the MOOC in terms of scaling interventions and scaling remediation, we really thought this as an opportunity for experimentation. As Gerald mentioned, we are also obviously a community college, so open access is a really core part of our mission and what drives us. But we are increasingly focused on a completion agenda. It's not enough to have open doors. We have to get students all the way through the hallways and out that exit door with the graduation cap on their heads as well. Our MOOC is an X-MOOC, so it has more of a traditional kind of pacing with it. It's competency-based, so there are 4 levels, and it is truly competency-based in that they cannot proceed to the next level until they achieve at about 80% or above on the current level. Then we also integrated virtual badges, which is kind of exciting. They integrate with Mozilla Open Badges Backpack, and this is something that CoreSites has been doing for a little while now, definitely before we did as an institution, so that was a really great kind of integrated piece to have. And then we also used game mechanics. So in our course, the leveling was also combined with a low-risk failure environment. So students were able to try the assessments again and again until they achieved at that 80% or better level. And again, capitalizing on some of the resilience that is built up using games and game mechanics. And then we were also able to grab a lot of data through CoreSites that they provided to us that we're still digging through. We have kind of a couple of different layers of metrics that we're gathering. Gerald, I'm just going to pause for a moment in case there's anything there that I need to know about, and then I'll move on. Everything good on your end?
Yep.
Awesome. So this was a really rapid design and development cycle. So we actually found the MOOC RFP through a couple of different scenarios. Came across a couple of different people's feeds in the office around mid-September, and then we submitted it at the end of September, so it was literally, you know, a week and a half that we really had in terms of that. And then we were notified that we got the grant for the MOOC at the end of October, and then we started work with the faculty in December, and then when people came back from the break in January, it was just constant design and development cycle, and it went live in March. So we had we ran MOOC 4 times, March, April, May, and June. And one of the things that was kind of interesting about this is that they didn't have, we didn't have a massive tens of thousands of students in this audience. We ended up with about 1,500 students, and of those, about 800 were really engaged in the content. So it was kind of, like Yarrow said, all of the question marks, all of these components of the MOOC are really negotiated within the environment, and that's why I think that there's so much flexibility with the format of the MOOC, and it has so much potential in terms of experimentation and finding out who these models are successful for and what they can be used for successfully. So just a little bit about the results of our project. We are a very large institution. We are Ohio's oldest and largest public community colleges, and we have about 52,000 students annually. We have 4 main campuses, over 1,000 courses. Online, I believe we have about 1,200 blended and online courses this fall. We have 140 programs, a whole lot of distance learning courses. So we have a fairly large population as an institution. And this was our success data. 1,372 people enrolled. Of those, and this was something that we worked very closely with course sites on, is we wanted to gather some data on them. So just because they enrolled doesn't mean they ever got to see the content. So in order to get to see the content, students had to complete a survey on some demographic information about their educational history, interest in taking a MOOC, those sorts of things. And of those that got past the survey, so that's the 809 is what we're considering our core group, because they actually completed the survey and were able to access the content. So of those, 147 successfully completed, which is almost about double the national average for a MOOC. Now again, this is kind of a slightly different model. It's not a mega MOOC. But most of them had not participated in a MOOC before. Over 40% had never even participated in an online course, and 97% would recommend. So that was some of the initial data, pretty impressive results. And then what we're going back through now is looking at kind of comparisons within our population of students. What are our results for our students who take that class versus these students who didn't have, the MOOC, they don't have the same skin in the game. So that it's definitely an apples to mangoes or apples to coconut comparison. It's not even like the same reference of normal everyday fruit. To make a really, really bad fruit-based metaphor, but I think it has a lot of potential, specifically for scaling interventions, for scaling developmental education for our purposes. And what we're doing now is we're working with faculty to really engage in terms of what do we see this doing in the future? Is this going to be a successful model for us? Is this something that we want to gather a larger data set on? Well, we have a core group of very involved faculty, and we have mechanisms within our institutional environment for really examining the model and seeing if it works. It is actually currently out there. So if you go to the website now, you can get online on course sites and take it for yourself. You won't be able to get to level 2 until you achieve 80% or better on level 1. So happy math with that. If there are any questions, or I'm assuming that I've burned through my time and that you probably need to move on, Carol.
Yeah, so let's go ahead. We'll let Michelle talk about their MOOC, and then we definitely have some time at the end for some questions. So thanks so much, Sasha.
Thank you. Well, I'm coming from the University of Illinois Springfield, and so ours is quite a bit different than what their experience was in MOOCs. Our MOOC, this is the second MOOC that we presented on our campus. It is the Emancipating Proclamation MOOC, and it's still accessible on course sites. If you want to go see it, you can visit our UIS course sites page here. And go ahead and enroll if you want to. All the materials are still there. This is our second MOOC that UIS offered. I was not engaged in the first MOOC. I was still on the faculty side of our campus then, not in our Center for Online Learning Research and Service yet. But I did learn a little bit about some of the lessons and trials that our colleagues experienced in that first MOOC, and a lot of those were overcome by us using course sites. That our first MOOC was our EDU MOOC. Have any of you visited our been a member of the EDU MOOC? I know we had a lot of educators that were engaged in that MOOC. Well, when that MOOC was launched, it was the largest MOOC at the time. This was summer of 2011. This was before Sebastian Thrun had his MOOC. So we had a large number of participants in that MOOC. And there were a lot of headaches that we had seen throughout the process, trying to get individuals access to the various software programs that we were using. They were using Google Hangouts, and they had to manually add people to the Hangouts. There were a lot of struggles with that. And using course sites, thankfully, a lot of those issues were overcome with our MOOC that we recently did. We ended up having about 775 registrants in our MOOC. We started it in January of this year, and it lasted through March. Coming from a business faculty perspective, my first concern as someone helping to get this MOOC launched was, how do we market it to our audience? And we did a lot of work piggybacking on all of the Lincoln news you had heard over the last year. When the Lincoln movie was out, we were hitting Twitter, we were hitting Facebook, all the social media promoting our MOOC. When The 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation was in the news. Guess what? We were marketing, pushing this MOOC. So we did a lot to try to get people to come to our MOOC. In the end, when we surveyed our students that had completed the MOOC and asked them how they heard about us, most of the people indicated that it was the course sites catalog that brought them to our MOOC in the first place. Even though my colleague, Ray Schroeder, has a huge following on Twitter, and we even got picked up on the Chicago Tribune and other news outlets, it was the course sites catalog presence that got us our students, and we're thankful for that. Our course design was interesting. We had 2 faculty members designing the course. So we were here helping to support them. We had a business or a political science faculty member and a law faculty member. They didn't necessarily agree on a lot of the topics. So what we saw as instructional designers was it was hard for us to get the material that we needed from them and get them to agree on what needed to be put into the course. But the benefit of all of the struggles we had was that it made our live sessions with our students dynamic, because we had 2 faculty members with very different opinions on these topics that we were presenting, and it made our attendance at the live sessions grow every session because people wanted to see them to go at it a little bit. The recordings are still there for those of you who may be interested in seeing those. We had weekly sessions that were either recordings that one of the faculty members presented, or the live panels, or we had scholars from the field come in and present the materials to our students. What we had seen with our students is that they were mainly there to learn. They weren't engaged in doing a lot of the activities. We had discussion board activities, we had Twitter assignments and other assignments, but most of our students were there just to learn more about Emancipation Proclamation. We had a lot of Lincoln experts that signed up for our class. So we had scholars in the field of Lincoln. They weren't going to post on Twitter their beliefs unless it's something that triggered one of their nerves. They just wanted to see what some of their peers had to say about the topics they were interested in. From a design standpoint, a challenge that we had also was not only did we have experts in the class, we had high school students in the class who were taking this as an elective for their school or for their homeschooling. And we had to present materials that would reach that audience as well as the top scholars in the field. So that was quite a challenge for us. As we looked at designing the class, we incorporated a lot of academic research articles, a lot of practitioner articles. The NBC Learn videos that were a part of course sites at the time were great for us, reaching out to those high school level students who needed the basics on what emancipation was. Some of our We weren't having any assessments as we did in the previous activities, so we weren't analyzing what they had learned from the class. We were just watching them access the materials, and we had a lot of people access the materials week to week. We had various references that we incorporated, and thankfully with a topic like the Emancipation Proclamation, a lot of the pictures that we wanted to access were public domain. And we listed on our website a few of those, so if you're planning on doing a MOOC in the future, feel free to look at this website to incorporate some of these sites. They were great for us. There were a few instances where our faculty members insisted on having a specific article that we couldn't get our hands on. Copyright issues, and unfortunately our librarians at the time were baffled on how to handle the copyright concerns of a MOOC. And so with those situations, when they insisted that we included something as reference materials, we would just have a link to the World Cat Library so that our students could hopefully access it at a library near them. We used a lot of the Blackboard tools in our class, the discussion board. We also included Twitter, blogs, and other sites as well. One of the benefits, as Sasha indicated, was having that data analytics. And when we designed our MOOC, we intentionally, thanks to your suggestion, I believe, had it set up in a series of modules that we can monitor how the students progress through the course. If they were participating in week 1, do they come to week 2, and so forth. And we saw a pretty good continuation of our students. Even though they weren't participating in the discussion board, they were coming back week after week to get those materials that they wanted to learn from. And we have that data available online as well if anyone wanted to see it.
I didn't switch tabs. Did you open the stats?
I did. All right, so some of our, again, how they became familiar, we had a lot of them familiar with the MOOC catalog, social media. Our course schedule, one thing we did notice, even though the faculty members had a week 1 activity, a week 2 activity, and so forth, our students were always behind. They were doing it on their own pace. Even though our faculty members were pushing the schedule in a certain way, our students were doing it when they could get to it. So when we had students engaged in the discussion board, it was usually a couple of weeks after where we had talked about those topics. But again, it's still available, and we still see new people posting every once in a while on the board. So even though the class has not been actively engaged in since March, there are still people participating. You can see in the first few weeks we had a high level of participation that kind of dwindled. Toward the end of our course, we changed topics from American Emancipation Proclamation issues to looking at emancipation in other countries. And so some of our Lincoln attendees who had that strong interest kind of disappeared at that point when we started talking about emancipation in other countries. One feedback that we did find in looking at our participants and talking to the faculty members and the other designers who helped with this MOOC is we had this MOOC set up as an 8-week MOOC. We would recommend, if you're thinking about doing a MOOC, make it a little shorter. We thought that 6 weeks might have been a better time schedule if you had one that you wanted to have a specific time frame for the engagement. Another thing that was interesting for our MOOC, and I assume this is different than what Sasha experienced, was the age of our participants. We had a lot of older participants, as you can see here. A lot of them were over the age of 50, or 46. So this might, again, support that even though we had people coming to the site, they weren't necessarily engaged. It was because, again, they wanted the materials, not necessary to interact with others about some of these topics. We also had a lot of retirees that were in our MOOC. So different demographic than what we might expect in some of the other MOOCs that we're seeing. We offered a badge for the MOOC. The badge was a participation-based badge. If somebody participated every week and marked off that they did all the activities that we requested our students complete, they would get the badge. Only a few of our participants did, but again, we're dealing with a different audience of students who didn't really need a badge or have value in the badge. With that, I'm going to close up. We still have some resources available, planning checklists on what we go through when we're making a MOOC. So I encourage you to take a look at this if you're thinking of doing a MOOC in the future. It's all available on the website. This website's not going to go away. So it's a Google site, Open Ed MOOC is what we have it as a URL. So with that, I'll turn it over to you so you can talk about the other one.
That's why I have 2 minutes left. I just wanted to highlight the last MOOC that's Open SUNY ran was on OER 101. And that was, Beth came to me originally to talk and see if they could offer a course on open education resources basically for the SUNY faculty, because they wanted to be able to teach the instructors how to utilize, create, license, and locate the OERs. So here's the URL. The interesting design of this was they did it in pursuits. They tried to take a trivial pursuit kind of model, an inquiry kind of model, and we helped them through the process of designing the class in that capacity. But they similarly offered badges along the way. Each of the pieces of the puzzle that you can see here in terms of the pursuits, if an individual completed the required activities in that, and they had very hands-on approaches about, for instance, using Wordle to go out and create a Wordle, come in and integrate that into their classrooms, and then complete the activity. And they were also looking to gather survey information at each step. Then they would obtain the badge. And then if you completed all 6 pursuits, you would get that entire badge. So a little bit of a leveling there as well. So please go to opensuny.coursesites.com. This is available as an open educational resource. So I think as you heard Michelle and Sasha say, what we're trying to do and encourage is not make these distinct closed learning opportunities, but particularly for the ones that we offer and the ones that clients offer, make them ongoing resources for individuals like yourselves, your colleagues, and students to go through in a self-paced manner, that use the resources in a cohort experience that you might go ahead and lead for yourselves. We've had that happen in this course, probably in the math course that we'll start seeing, and particularly even in the emancipation class, I would imagine, since it's still open. So I just want to leave you with some resources and then open the floor for any questions. I know we have probably 1 or 2 minutes for either Sasha, myself, or Michelle. Sorry, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm interested in Blackboard as course sites, how they're doing their what is intellectual property. You know, so if I go to Google sites, or if I go anywhere, there's no question it's all mine. If I go to Blackboard, Blackboard now also has a license with my content.
So the question is, how does course sites treat the copyright of the individual or the,
So the instructor's intellectual property.
Right, that's right. So you pass us a license mainly from a support standpoint. And we're not ever intending to reuse that material for our own purposes in any other manner, just perhaps to recreate in case there's an issue. We don't want to go ahead and have support individuals in an active environment. So in order to do that, to comply with copyright law, there is a free license that you do pass us in that regard, but there's no intention of any commercial enterprise with the content the instructors put in.
But the language in your terms of service includes being able to sell it, transform it, adapt it.
It's just making the copies is really, there's not the language to sell it. If it's in there, then that's incorrect.
Okay.
We'll rectify that. So absolutely. So you do maintain the right to all the material, the original copy. That's a good question. Any other questions? All right, so stop by, search us out, we'll meet for the rest of the conference, and I can get you Sasha's information as well. So thank you so much for joining us today.